So this is the overall study. Now I have to say right now that there are some serious loopholes here. So before we can jump into major conclusions or sensationalist headlines, there are a few problems with this study that should prevent us actually from making very big claims. So one of them is that the number of people who participated was very low.
Yeah.
In fact, only 18 people did the crossover study, based on which we are making these conclusions. And 18 is a very small number. Because if you just take 18 random people, there will be variation between them anyway, right? So we need a much larger study. And this is one of the, what we call as a pilot study. It is still not conducted on a larger scale. It is not peer reviewed. Other scientists have not had a chance to look at it. So while we have to take this with a pinch of salt, it is still interesting to discuss what AI does to the brain.
Right. So, Dr. Warrior, the study is basically saying in easy words that the more dependent you are on tech, the less brain activity, the less of your own, mental faculties you're using, and thus less usage of brain. But I'm trying to understand, in the long run, does it lead to anything? It talks about retention patterns being low. Meaning, of course, if you're not engaged in something personally, it's not your computer that's being used. It's the LLM that's getting used. So you will not retain that. That's a no-brainer. But does this lead to long-term cognitive change? That's would be fascinating to know.
Yeah. And that is the big question. But I need to point out something that you just said, which is you're using less brain. Now, that may not be actually true, because the way that we use our brain would change if we are using a tool. Now, every time a new technology has come up, our usage of our brain's resources has changed. So before we had the ability to use calculators, before calculators were invented, everyone were able to make these large mathematical sums and multiplications because we needed to. There was no choice. In fact, before we had the ability to store data digitally, everybody had to memorize these huge texts.
Or before GPS, we had to remember the maps, the locations.
Maps. Phone numbers. How many phone numbers did you remember as a kid versus how many do you remember now? So as technology changes, the way that we use our brain's resources changes. That doesn't automatically mean it's a turn for the worse. That being said, there is something different about AI versus every other tool that we have ever invented so far, which is that AI is able to do the planning part of our life, whereas every tool till today has always been about helping us do what we have already planned. So GPS will tell us how to get to a place, but it won't tell us where to go. But today, ChatGPT can help us do the actual planning bit. So there are certain differences between AI and every other tool. But this is also true that every time a new technology has come up, we have all engaged in a bit of fear-mongering. And I was looking back at history, and this is true. Every time a new technology has come up, whether it's calculators, whether it's the internet, whether it's social media, this discussion has happened. That is this the end of human cognition? And so far we have proven to be more resilient than that.
Listen, social media, you can't say. The jury is still out. We don't know if we've become a generation which is only living on reels.
I feel like it's negative. Isn't the jury out on that? Are there
That's what
any
I'm saying.
upsides? Yeah.
I'm just trying to be polite about it. That's why I'm saying that I don't know if social media actually did. I mean, it did do a lot of good, but the habit is. Anyways, that's digressing.
It probably got spotlight.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
There is an important point here, which is, unfortunately, and we have to put this out there, the brain is wired to be lazy, except that the brain calls it efficiency. So whenever I tell you of a way that you can get something done in an easier way, your brain is going to go for it because that is how it is wired. We want to get more done with less effort. And it has always helped us from an evolutionary perspective. That is why humans have reached where we are, because we have tried to solve more complex problems using lesser resources. The issue is, just like it has happened in the physical world, we've thought that using escalators, using lifts, using cars, using home delivery are all great ways of saving our time. But now what has happened is we don't have to move.
So we need,
just like
we
we
need
have,
gyms. Maybe
Yes.
in the future, if this goes on, we'll need like a mental gym to go and
Or a brain
exercise.
gym.
A brain gym. Yeah, that could be catchy. Like you have sleep pods, you'll have brain gyms where you go and activate different parts of your brain, which has just been lazing around.
Dr. Warren,
Or being efficient. Sorry, I'm just been told. Being efficient.
and what's
yeah.
interesting is that probably only the most disciplined ones amongst us would do it, because the rest of us don't really need to.
so can we ask
That
you
is a
this?
possibility.
Can we ask you, every time our brain adapts to new technology, as you're summarizing for us, it's not always negative. That's the biggest takeaway. The human brain,
Yeah.
as you just said, is optimizing for efficiency. That's a big takeaway. But I do want to understand from you, it's a little too early to say this right now. AI and ChatGPT in particular hasn't been in all our lives, I'm sure, long enough for us to really see in a large way the kind of changes. But if you had to venture a guess, a dangerous thing, but if you had to venture a guess, what would you venture to guess are the positive aspects or the positive impacts of using ChatGPT? For example, does it force us to synthesize what it is that we want? Because even when you need to get ChatGPT to do something for you, you have to be very clear. There's a language you need to speak in. Is that maybe an advantage? What would you say are the advantages?
Absolutely. So, one interesting thing that has happened is what ChatGPT is currently doing was what we have considered as the highest level of expectation from a human being. So, if a child were able to think rationally and make a plan, you would say that, oh, this is a logical child. But now, with ChatGPT, if everybody is able to do this, and I call myself as a neuro-optimist, so I always believe that the brain is capable of more. So if you make this as the baseline, we might be entering into an exciting world where we figure out what else is the brain capable of. Because our brain is able to create solutions to problems once we say this is a problem. So if the highest level of expectation from say a student is to just write a 10-point essay, and if ChatGPT is able to do it, now the expectation that we have from each other might change. So I don't think that this is it for human beings. I think we are going through a phase of transition, just like in art. We saw the whole Ghibli art thing, right? So if AI is able to create Ghibli art, then our definition of art will change. Now it's no longer just creating that art. Now it's something else. So in every field, this is happening. With new technology, the expectation will change. In the brain, this is all happening in the prefrontal cortex, by the way. This is the developed part of the brain. And our ability to use the prefrontal cortex will evolve.
Okay.
Really AI
Interesting.
positivist here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Neuropositive.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Neuropositive.
Neo and ChatGPT positivist,
He's
yeah.
called himself. It's a good outlook. But Dr. Warrior, I want to understand this concept called struggle muscle. I read about it long ago, and then this sort of study also popped it up for me. It said that cognitive effort is key to deep learning. If AI removes that friction, are we then in a way weakening our capacity for this struggle muscle? For our viewers, it's basically the part of your brain that helps you deconstruct complex situations. And like any other muscle, the more you practice, the better it gets. So is that not a concern?
It actually is. So the way that our brain assigns value to something is based on the struggle that you have gone through to receive it. So even in this study, even though it is a small study, pilot study, one thing that had come out was the group that had used ChatGPT to write the essay, later on when they were asked to talk about their essay, they couldn't remember much of what they wrote. Because they didn't need to struggle for it, they didn't need to think for it. Whereas the group that wrote it by themselves could remember what they wrote. Because the value that you attach to your own work reduces if it is done by ChatGPT. So, and the chemicals in the brain is basically dopamine and serotonin. So these are the two chemicals that combine together to assign value. Now, if we are not struggling for something, the value of that thing drops. Now, ironically, how happy we are is based on how many valuable things are there around us. So if we are achieving everything around us with less struggle, our brain assigns less value, which means we are less happy. So we are caught in an ironic loop where even if we are getting things more easily, we are less happy, which is what the world is facing more and more.
That's pickle. Tell us.
It is. And once we understand this, we will be able to solve this problem better. I think the issue is that we have been trying to solve for efficiency and not happiness.
Fascinating.
But I love it's entering very meta territory, if I may say. Can you just tell us?
Yeah. Good morning to everyone.
Doctor, if you had to structure classroom activity in today's day and age, if you were an educator, because we're talking so much about using ChatGPT, and you made this beautiful point that maybe it opens up our minds to doing new activities altogether. So I want to ask you, if you were an educator sitting with a classroom of students who you are almost confident are using ChatGPT, what are the manners in which you would reshape the exercises you were giving them to make them engage in this muscle stress, to make them engage their critical thinking, creative skills? How would you challenge them?
And at what age? Would you say, like social media, there's a very active discussion going on. At what age should kids be given access to social media? Would you say we are now moving into a terrain, perhaps because we don't know what it's doing to us, maybe have an age limit on use of LLMs?
Absolutely. So using social media versus LLM is a slightly different discussion because social media is designed to be an addictive habit, whereas LLMs, there is more of a tool concept to it. It is something that we can use to achieve something. So far, correct. So the one thing that I would stress upon is, and this is not just for children actually, even for adults who are using AI, is to have the purpose of using AI to be clear. Now, in schools, if a student were to give an exam, the purpose of giving that exam is to see if that student is able to write that essay quickly. But if AI is able to do it, what is the purpose? The AI is a tool for a larger purpose. That has to be drilled in. So the purpose of solving an equation is not just to solve that equation, it is to get to the next step. What does this equation do? How will it help us in our real world? Right? So it is like saying, if a student is trained in using a calculator, why are you using the calculator? Because you want to solve a problem. Maybe you want to build a car. Maybe you want to design a rocket. If that purpose is clear, then using an AI tool will not diminish your brain's capacity because you are only using it to get to a second place. The problem with the current education system is that the essay is the final point. Solving the sum is the final point. Then, of course, if a student uses AI, then they don't have to use their brains at all. Right? So I think that distinction has to be there. So a tool versus a final outcome, it's almost a conceptual distinction, but it's very, very important. If you make that distinction in a child's brain right from the beginning, I think the child will continue to use their brains and the tool will just help them get to their final outcome better.
Okay.
It's taking me back to what another guest of ours, Deepa Premkumar, on the program had said. She said if you're using AI to elevate thinking and not delegate work, you'll probably be fine. And I think that's what it's really circling back to, that don't use it as a way to just get rid of work, but perhaps use it to sort of elevate and get down to what you define as purpose-driven thinking and maybe get down to that. All right, I'm afraid that's all the time we have for Dr. Warrior on this one, but thank you so much for joining. It's been a fascinating discussion. And here's to being a little more, what did you say? Was that neuropositive?
Neuro-optimist.
Neuro-optimist. Here's to staying and hoping that our brains and our bodies will be able to sort of overcome this AI and LLM overload that perhaps our generation will be the first to experience. Thanks so much.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Warrior. All right, we're going to move on from this now to something entirely different.
All right, celebrated annually on the 23rd of June, the International Olympic Day is a global tribute to the birth of modern Olympic Games. To mark the occasion, athletes and people from different nations participate in several activities to raise awareness about the Olympic Games and also encourage people from all walks of life, irrespective of their age, gender, caste or creed, to take to sports in their lifestyles.
Initially celebrated across 9 countries, the International Olympic Day has since become a globally celebrated occasion. It encourages people to embrace sport, to fetch its wider benefits for health, public welfare and unity. Now, launched by the IOC in collaboration with the World Health Organization, this year's theme for the International Olympics Day is Let's Move. The theme is designed as a call for people to shed inactivity and move together, be it walking, running, playing or even dancing with their friends and their loved ones.
All right, so get moving, you guys. That's the only reminder the WHO and the Olympics team would want all of us to have. On that note, we're going to slip into a break. On the other side, we get you the threat perception that is fueling concept. Can there be a spiritual sort of solution to it? The spiritual leader, Sri Ravi Shankar's exclusive chat coming up on the other side.
मैं दिखाने की कोशिश करूंगा आपको इस वक्त रियल पिक्चर जो है ये टेल अवीव की है और यहाँ पे काफ़ी एरिया से मुझे धुआं दिख रहा है और बताया जा रहा है कि 7 जगहों पे या तो रैकेज गिरा है।
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
We're getting a breaking input at this point. Missiles fired from Iran towards Israel, according to the Israeli military. This is what is happening as far as the latest is concerned. Now, Israel Air Force says a short time ago, alerts were activated in several areas of the country following the discovery of missiles launched from Iran into the territory of the state of Israel. Now, the public is asked to obey the Home Front Command's instruction. At this time, the Air Force is working to intercept and attack wherever necessary to eliminate the threat. Further, it says that the defense is not hermetic and therefore the Home Front Command's instruction must continue to be followed. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Akansha Swarup on this broadcast. Akansha, just about 24 hours earlier, we have seen that Iran has attacked Israel. The missiles were launched towards Israel, and once again today as well, we are seeing that the same is being done. So the escalation is only increasing from here.
Yes, and important to highlight that the civilians in areas where sirens are sounding have been instructed to remain in shelters, and they are sounding across central Israel. So central Israel has been heavily targeted, Shireen, by this barrage of missiles. And as you rightly said, that soon after the US airstrikes, there was an increase, a very sharp increase in the missile barrage that has been sent from Iran. So it is a very tense moment for Israel. They have, in fact, destruction against Iran, and we'll have to see how far this is now going to go. But these retaliatory missiles that have been coming from Iran, they are continuing to come, and Jerusalem is also bearing front of this, of being building, as been launching a new wave of missiles into Israel. There's been casualties on both ends, to say the least. Israel is running high on the wave after the airstrike. We've already heard Prime Minister Netanyahu thank the US President Remember, even Ben Gurion Airport was hit earlier by Iran, and Israel, of course, fired back. How long can they sustain this conflict is also a critical question, because Israel's own defense capabilities are taking a hit. The Iron has also, it's also been impacted severely. And both the countries are in fact hitting missiles. There's been drone strikes since the conflict also began. And we are seeing a very deeply divisive Middle East. We'll have to see how this now shapes up the geopolitics, because as we speak, we all know that Iran has also started bringing in their allies, particularly Russia, and how that meeting now shapes up between the Iranian foreign minister and the Russian president is something we'll have to see. But they are firing in batches. Earlier, they had fired one batch of 27 missiles. Haifa and Tel Aviv have already been targeted, and several people have been reported.
All right, let's take you now to stories from India and across the world. First up, star Indian fast bowler Jasprit Bumrah has come out in support of Indian players after they faced sharp criticism from fans and experts of the game for their poor performance on the field during England's first innings. Indian players dropped at least half a dozen catches on Saturday and Sunday, combined to give multiple chances to England batters. They made India pay as well. When asked about India's poor fielding in the ongoing first test against England at Headingley, Bumrah, during the post-day conference, said no player is dropping the catches deliberately.
All right, moving on from that to Venice, where it is prepping up on Sunday to host the wedding of the world's second richest man, Jeff Bezos, with his fiancée and journalist Lauren Shinzes. Now, the Venetians were divided on opinion about the wedding, with some saying it could bring positive publicity to the floating city, while others feared it could contribute to over-tourism. After a swirl of media speculations about the location or what has been dubbed the wedding of the century, now, the mayor of Venice actually confirmed in March that it would take place in Venice, which last year began sort of charging tourists a fee to enter the city.
And a hot air balloon that was a frequent sight during the Olympic Games last year in Paris made a return to the skies over the French capital. This balloon served as the 2024 Games Olympic flame. It lifted off from the gardens at the world-famous Louvre Museum in the center of Paris, coinciding with the start of the city's annual Fête de la Musique. The balloon's designer has said there are plans to showcase it over the next few years in Paris, but plans for a permanent home have not been made yet, according to the designer.
Entrepreneur and model Hailey Bieber shared a touching moment with fans on Instagram, posting a never-before-seen photo of her pregnancy with son Jack. Now dressed in a blush pink gown, Hailey cradled her baby bump in an emotional tribute, marking her son's 10-month milestone. The heartfelt post also offers fans a rare glimpse of her journey into motherhood.
And next we show you something very, very cool, very innovative, and a definite step away from the norm. Cozy games are an emerging genre of games that emphasize relaxation, non-violence, and player expression. They feature nurturing elements and open-ended goals. They are free of chasing after levels, and recent research explores if these games can improve your mental health and your quality of life. This is a super interesting study, perfect for the Breakfast Club. Take a look. This is a Reuters report.
This is Nori, and this is Reutersville. We are inside a Reuters simulation of a cozy game. A cozy game is defined by its easy, relaxing nature and constructive rather than destructive challenges. Since 2020, this gaming subgenre has seen a significant increase in popularity. And some recent research backs up what some have long suspected. that welcoming, cute, and low-skill video games could be an antidote to stress and anxiety. In Reutersville on this cold winter night, Nori must clean their room before they can settle in with their own cozy game. The subgenre was kick-started by games like the farming simulation Harvest Moon in 1996. And the cozy game worlds are often centered around social connection and building relationships.
That's definitely one of the core fantasies of a cozy game, is getting to live in a community.
This is Joshua LaBelle, a creative director for the life simulation game Disney Dreamlight Valley.
Maybe there is friction sometimes, but ultimately everybody kind of pulls together and holds together.
When much of the world shut down in 2020, there was an unprecedented spike in gaming. One UK study aggregated data on the 500 most popular games globally on the online gaming platform Steam. By June 2020, they saw a 23% jump from the previous year. And players say the feeling of community transcends the game itself. There's been a rise of social media influencers in the space, like Cozy K and Iona. They've amassed hundreds of thousands, even millions of followers. And these games can also provide a space for people who struggle to connect with others offline. Suzanne Roman, who describes herself as an autistic advocate, has personal experience with how these gaming communities can be lifelines for neurodivergent people.
I think it's just made them more confident people who feel like they fit in socially. There's even been relationships, of course, that are formed in the real world out of this.
And game developers like Dorian Sinyargu, half of the duo behind neighborhood management simulation Manami Lane, are dedicated to making the games inclusive.
Every game is political, every game is a view on how the world should be or should not be, and ours is too. We knew from the start that if we made humanoid people, we wanted to give them colors of a wide range, names, genres that could be a bit of a mix between non-binary, male, female, and that's in the game too.
Video games haven't typically been considered a force for good, though. In 2019, gaming disorder, characterized by impaired control over gaming, was listed in the International Classification of Diseases. But after a 2-year study in Japan from 2020 to 2022, researcher Hiroyuki Egami found that owning a game console and increased gameplay reduced psychological distress and improved life satisfaction among participants. Other studies also point to a shift in perceptions of gaming.
I think as more research has come about related to video games, I think we're recognizing that it actually can have a lot of benefits.
Michael Wong is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Neurosciences at McMaster University in Canada. In a survey of 80 undergraduates published in 2021, he found that casual gaming had the same effect on blood pressure and heart rate as a 20-minute meditation session. In cozy games, it's virtually impossible to lose, and they don't require extreme skill. Some can help players tackle darker subjects. In Spiritfarer, the gamer plays a ferry master to the deceased, exploring death and grief. Its creative director, Nicolas Guérin, recalls when an end-of-life nurse wrote to him.
She told us basically I had given up hope on my own profession. And then I played the game and it helped me process my own emotions. Well, she went back on the saddle and she rekindled her own love for the job.
For many, cozy games become a sanctuary. They're a place to escape, unwind, and experience a sense of connection in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming.
All right, moving on from that now to something entirely different. Shri Ravi Shankar, the spiritual leader, he recently spoke with CNN News 18's Anand Narasimhan, and they discussed the root cause of conflicts. In fact, he essentially identified threat perception as the primary driver.
He has also offered to mediate between Iran and Israel as an impartial entity. Let's dive deeper into this conversation. Here's an excerpt.
But there is a current conflict that's brewing. Again, it's about existence. One believes the other one wants to wipe it out. The Israelis believe that the Iranians have a doctrine of wiping out Jews and Israel. The Israelis believe that the Iranians believe that the Israelis via America want to wipe the Shias and the Iranian nation out. Now, how does this conflict get resolved?
Again, as I said, we need people who can mediate, who can talk to them, sit with them. it needs quite a bit of that middleman's role to be played there. And people who are friendly with both the nations will have to sit with them, iron out the differences, and come to some conclusion, some understanding. I mean, it is a uphill task, but I won't say that it is impossible to achieve it. This was the case, if you look back, a century back, France and Germany were arch enemies. They were fighting, and England and France, they were fighting for centuries actually. But then today they've all come together. So time and perseverance and wise people's intervention is absolutely necessary here.
In this case, is trust a factor, ego a factor? Like let's say Bharat or someone like you or someone like Prime Minister Modi have got engagements with Israel and also Iran. So should Bharat put its hand up and say, we will try and say, because we've got nothing in the stake, we want peace? Or is this game far greater than that, Gurudev, when it comes to conflict resolution and this region, especially West Asia?
I think we should all give a try for this. Yeah. Sometimes political people are not so trusted by other political parties. So they always see there is some vested interest. That's what had happened in the Colombian peace process. The EU tried, US tried, and nothing succeeded. That's what the press asked me first. How come you could succeed where big powers could not convince the FARC to leave the arms and come to the mainstream? I said, it's all matter of, building trust. It's more than words. It goes beyond the words. You interact with somebody. It's not just what they say, but what they make you feel makes a big difference.
Will you be willing to jump into this and to try and see if this can be resolved?
Well, God willing, if that's what happens, we'll see. I'm always there for peace. And I'm always available for any sort of, conflict resolution. I would say the same thing with Russia and Ukraine. See what's happened. Russia has a perception that Ukraine is out to get them, and so they attacked Ukraine. So I think because it's all humans, we're all human, and the human mind works in various different emotions and various different factors. There is ego factor, and there is ambition, and there is selfishness, and sometimes people start something, they don't know how to end it, they get stuck with it. People say things which they may not even believe, but then once they have said, they will have to prove that what they've said is, and they will hold on to it, is correct. So it's a very complex situation.
But Gurudev, see, the scriptures say we are all instruments of the divine. But sometimes nations are instruments of some other nations. So in that case, how do you resolve conflict? If a conversation was between two entities, it's okay, and their relevant parties. But if there are external entities which are controlling the pawns on the game, the geopolitical chessboard, how does that get resolved?
Anand, basically everyone is a human being. Even nation is not a non-human object. That's also humans only. And the human interaction, the human thinking, human behavior, from what state of consciousness they are acting, that makes a big difference, That's why I said it's a threat perception and one-upmanship tendency to keep one-upmanship role. And all these unfortunate trends of minds and ego, this cannot go away without a proper spiritual or upliftment of society. If people are thinking like Mahatma Gandhi, or Vallabhbhai Patel, or like Buddha, and that sort of broader vision, like Nelson Mandela, I would say, Mahatma Gandhi. I mean, they had a different vision for humanity. So that type of broader vision for the entire humanity, seeing the whole world as one family, all this will matter a lot when you pursue such things. Yeah.
All right, time to bring our car and bike segment now. Get ready to see the Skoda SUVs in a whole new light. Now, Overdrive puts the Kodiaq, the Kailak and the Kodiaq to the test on various tracks, pushing their performance handling and off-roading capabilities to the limit.
All right, let's take a closer look at these K-triplets and how their compact SUVs fare on the track and off the beaten path. This is the Overdrive verdict. Take a look.
Hello and welcome to Overdrive. Today we are here at Alibag. It's pretty humid. My hair tells me that it's pretty windy as well. But we are here for this. So Skoda called us for an experiential drive where we are going to drive the Kailak, the Slavia and the Kodiaq on this track and the big boy, the Kodiaq, on an off-road track. So what am I waiting for talking to you? Let's get going. We drove the Kailak and the Kodiaq on the testing course, which was divided into braking, slalom, moose test and an autocross track. The Slavia was also there, but considering the size of the track, we skipped the lengthy sedan for the two SUVs. The aim was to test out both the engines of Skoda here, and we got the 1 litre on the Kailak and the 1.5 on the Kodiaq. The Kailak came across as an agile, quick-footed, and the Kodiaq felt more grounded and stable. However, the entire experience turned out to be a lot of fun and left us asking for a few extra rounds on the track. So we are here at the off-road track, which is pretty elaborate. There is a side incline, an ascent, a descent, a ditch, and it's pretty elaborate and looks pretty nice and interesting. So I'm not going to wait any longer. I'm going to get into a Kodiaq and I'll see you inside the car. Next was the big one, the Kodiaq, which we took off-roading. The off-roading track was more elaborate and diverse, and the Kodiaq with its 4x4 abilities was a treat on the off-roading track, where we drove through various steep inclines and declines, strips with potholes, and also did a braking test. The side incline and the ditch were particularly challenging. However, the Kodiaq, with its executive attitude that it holds, did surprisingly well on the off-roading bit, thanks to the suspension and the all-wheel drive.
So we have no questions to the fact that Skoda Kodiaq is a very capable car. But what we're here to test is how it does off-road. Now we're going to do some climbing. Go. Now it's going down and I really can't see what is in front of me. So I'm going to depend on the hill hold control. Oh, this is crazy. So what this essentially means is that the hill descent control is really working. So as you can see that we drove through quite a tough patch, but the Kodiaq seems to handle stuff pretty well. stop. There was a pretty accident. So now what we are going ahead for is a half mud and a half road track, and we're going to test the braking of the Kodiak. Let's check it out. No commotion, no left, right, no correction. Dead stable. That is fantastic. Yeah. That's stable.
This is very important for India. So now we are heading to the driver off. Same technique as that one. Passenger side. No, driver side. Go passenger off. So here also same thing. Progressively climb and on the brake. This is a little more of an angle. So done a bit. Climb up, go right. Three, slower, and smoother. Wonderful.
Okay, so we are going to run into a ditch right now. So the left hand side is going to tilt down. In 3, 2, 1, go. So that trench that we just got into, when that happens, the rear right wheel is almost 3 feet in the air.
So here we come to a close to this very fun and amazing day. Thanks to Skoda for arranging this. And we had fun driving the Kailak and the Kushak on the track, and we got to know the pros and cons of both the cars, and which is very interesting too. And finally, the Kodiak on this very nice off-road track, which also opened our eyes to so much more that the Kodiak has to offer. And so I'd say goodbye from Alibag. I'll see you next time.
All right, next we take you to a special segment on financial markets powered by Money Control Pro, Money Control's premium destination for investing and business insights. Let's start with how markets are pegged to open this Monday morning. Indian markets are likely to open lower as per GIFT Nifty data. No surprises there as the US attack on Iran's nuclear site and Iran's that of closing energy sort of choke point at the Strait of Hormuz is likely to keep markets volatile. Now, in morning trades, Asian markets are in the negative territory. Oil futures are trading higher, while gold futures are trading marginally lower.
Okay, private hospitals are the sector we're going to be taking a look at today. They're benefiting from rising demand for quality healthcare. However, competition is heating up with large capacity additions being planned. Is the best behind for the sector? That's our big question. You can log into Money Control Pro to find out more about the hospitals and the healthcare sector, and of course other actionable insights on the market. It's the premier destination for all investing views and financial insights that you're ever going to need, brought to you by Money Control.
All right, with that, we're going to slip into a break. Coming up on the other side, our video of the day. Come right back.
मैं दिखाने की कोशिश करूंगा आपको इस वक्त रियल पिक्चर जो है ये टेल अवीव की है और यहाँ पे काफ़ी एरिया से मुझे धुआं दिख रहा है और बताया जा रहा है कि 7 जगहों पे या तो रैकेज गिरा है।
कैश कम है।
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
We're getting a breaking input at this point. Missiles fired from Iran towards Israel, according to the Israeli military. This is what is happening as far as the latest is concerned. Now, Israel Air Force says a short time ago, alerts were activated in several areas of the country following the discovery of missiles launched from Iran into the territory of the state of Israel. Now, the public is asked to obey the Home Front Command's instruction. At this time, the Air Force is working to intercept and attack wherever necessary to eliminate the threat. Further, it says that the defense is not hermetic and therefore the Home Front Command's instruction must continue to be followed. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Akansha Swarup on this broadcast. Akansha, just about 24 hours earlier, we have seen that Iran has attacked Israel. The missiles were launched towards Israel, and once again today as well, we are seeing that the same is being done. So the escalation is only increasing from here.
Yes, and important to highlight that the civilians in areas where sirens are sounding have been instructed to remain in shelters, and they are sounding across central Israel. So central Israel has been heavily targeted, Shireen, by this barrage of missiles. And as you rightly said, that soon after the US airstrikes, there was an increase, a very sharp increase in the missile barrage that has...
Welcome back. Today, as a bulletin ender, we've got two specific videos pulled out for you. This one, the first one, is for the 23rd year in a row. Yogis actually returned to Times Square in New York City on Friday, that was on the 20th of June, to practice their movement together and enjoy the summer solstice. Now, we wanted to see if it was possible to find peace in a place like this, the solstice in Times Square. Mind Over Madness Yoga co-founder Douglas Stewart actually made that comment.
Yoga has been practiced in India for centuries, the postures, the meditation, but there it is. It's been going to New York for years now. In 2014, the UN declared June 21st as International Day of Yoga. We celebrated it right here on the Breakfast Club on Friday, of course. Let's take you from this now to a different video. Staying in the Big Apple, staying in New York, tomorrow is the Democratic Party primary in New York. And because most of New York is Democratic, this is the main context in New York to decide the next mayor. You're looking at Zohran Mamdani. He's running. He's up against a political giant, the former governor Andrew Cuomo, who was forced out of office 4 years ago after multiple women accused him of sexual harassment.
Now, Mamdani is already the first South Asian to run for mayor in New York. And he's also, fun fact, director Meera Nair's son. His videos and policy proposals have been making waves online. We picked out one particular video for you, which is a lot of humor, a lot of fun, not the kind of politics we see in India. So enjoy this one.
एक सवाल पूछना चाहता हूँ। तुमने कभी किसी को वोट किया? कभी किसी को रैंक किया? देखो, यहाँ न्यूयॉर्क सिटी में हम रैंक चॉइस वोटिंग यूज करते हैं। इसका मतलब है कि सिर्फ एक कैंडिडेट को चूज करने के बजाय आप 5 कैंडिडेट्स तक को रैंक कर सकते हो अपनी पसंद के हिसाब से। सोचिए, ये 5 लस्सिया कैंडिडेट्स हैं और मैं ये वाला हूँ। ये सिस्टम ऐसे काम करता है। सबसे पहले फर्स्ट चॉइस वोट्स काउंट होते हैं। जिस कैंडिडेट के वोट सबसे कम होते हैं उसे हटा दिया जाता है। लेकिन अगर वो आपका पहला चॉइस था तो आपका वोट खत्म नहीं होता है, वो आपके नेक्स्ट चॉइस को चला जाता है। ये प्रोसेस तब तक चलता है जब तक किसी कैंडिडेट के पास आधे से ज्यादा वोट्स ना हो जाएं। आप जितने ज्यादा लोगों को रैंक करते हो उतनी ज्यादा आपकी बैलेट और आवाज में ताकत होती है। इसलिए मैं चाहता हूं कि आप मुझे, ज़ोहरान ममदानी को, अपने बैलेट पे पहले नंबर पे रैंक कीजिए। और सिर्फ मुझे नहीं, बाकी बैलेट भी जरूर भरना। ये 3 दूसरे कैंडिडेट्स हैं जिनको आप रैंक कीजिए। लेकिन एक बात याद रखना, एंड्रू कोमो को रैंक नहीं करना। उसका कैंपेन ट्रंप के डोनर्स के पैसों से चल रहा है। अगर वो जीता तो डीसी के साथ साथ NYC भी उनका होगा। बिलियनियर्स के पास ऑलरेडी सब कुछ है। अब आपका टाइम आ गया।
में दिखाने की कोशिश करूंगा आपको इस वक्त रियल पिक्चर जो है ये टेल एवीव की है और यहाँ पे काफ़ी एरिया से मुझे धुआं दिख रहा है और बताया जा रहा है कि 7 जगहों पे या तो रैकेज गिरा है।
Brought to you by This is News18 Network. India's largest news network.
We're getting a breaking input at this point. Missiles fired from Iran towards Israel, according to the Israeli military. This is what is happening as far as the latest is concerned. Now, Israel Air Force says a short time ago, alerts were activated in several areas of the country following the discovery of missiles launched from Iran into the territory of the state of Israel. Now, the public is asked to obey the Home Front Command's instruction. At this time, the Air Force is working to intercept and attack wherever necessary to eliminate the threat. Further, it says that the defense is not hermetic and therefore the Home Front Command's instruction must continue to be followed. I'm now joined by CNN News 18's Akansha Swarup on this broadcast. Akansha, just about 24 hours earlier, we have seen that Iran has attacked Israel. The missiles were launched towards Israel, and once again today as well, we are seeing that the same is being done. So the escalation is only increasing from here.
Yes, and important to highlight that the civilians in areas where sirens are sounding have been instructed to remain in shelters, and they are sounding across central Israel. So central Israel has been heavily targeted, Shireen, by this barrage of missiles. And as you rightly said, that soon after the US airstrikes, there was an increase, a very sharp increase in the missile barrage that has been sent from Iran. So it is a very tense moment for Israel. They have, in fact, destruction against Iran, and we'll have to see how far this is now going to go. But these retaliatory missiles that have been coming from Iran, they are continuing to come, and Jerusalem is also bearing front of this, have been building, has been launching a new wave of missiles into Israel. There's been casualties on both ends, to say the least. Israel is running high on the wave after the airstrike. We've already heard Prime Minister Netanyahu thank the US President. Remember, even Ben Gurion Airport was hit earlier by Iran, and Israel, of course, fired back. How long can they sustain this conflict is also a critical question, because Israel's own defense capabilities are taking a hit. The IMF has also, it's also been impacted severely, and both the countries are in fact hitting missiles. There's been drone strikes since the conflict also began. And we are seeing a very deeply divisive Middle East. We'll have to see how this now shapes up the geopolitics, because as we speak, we all know that Iran has also started bringing in their allies, particularly Russia, and how that meeting now shapes up between the Iranian foreign minister and the Russian president is something we'll have to see. But they are firing in batches. Earlier, they had fired one batch of 27 missiles. Haifa and Tel Aviv